Hi, this is Chico Resch. You are listening to the Let's Go Devils podcast on the Primetime Radio Network.
Happy Devils Monday to you. It is a Game Day Live daytime edition brought to you by the Let's Go Devils podcast network. We are live coming at you on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. Everywhere you can find your podcast, it will be available to listen to audio after we are done. We have a little special guest, the OG Shorts guy and his cat. I don't know your cat's name. We'll get to that in a minute. We got a big game today between the New Jersey Devils and the San Jose Sharks out there in beautiful California. Shorts guy, how we doing?
Doing good, Vinny. It's weird to be doing this during the day. It's been a while, and I'm sitting here looking out the window in my studio, and the sun is up. It's like, this is weird, especially with the late night games we've had in the last couple days.
Yeah, the last couple days, the Devils have started at 9:30 or 9 o'clock p.m. Central. It's even later over there in New Jersey, being 10:30 when these games starts, 1:30 when the game's over. It's honestly wild. But I like doing daytime games on the weekend because it's like it's Saturday or it's Sunday. I'm used to that by now. But when it's an actual, like it's a Monday and we're doing this at 2, 3 p.m., depending on where you are in the country. People in California getting ready for a 1 p.m. Devil start. Really quick, what's the kitty's name?
Her name is Tread.
Tread, because the San Jose Sharks better tread lightly when they're playing against the New Jersey Devils. So we were talking a little bit. Yeah, we were talking about a little bit pre-game or pre-show what we expect for this game between the Devils and the Sharks. And I compared the Sharks. They're kind of like a Western Conference version of the Philadelphia Flyers, who are playing right now against the Boston Bruins. They are getting mollywopped by them. But, the Sharks, they are a good or a bad team. They're low in the standings, but they play hard. They have players that can beat you. They probably have what will end up being the Norris Trophy winner in Erik Karlsson. What do you look for when a team like the Devils, who are on a 4-game winning streak and looking to sweep the California road trip, playing against a team like the Sharks, where they are in the standings, what they present to you, in terms of what makes them actually go when they're going well? What are you looking at in a game like this?
Well, I'm looking at, you have to approach this game like you approached LA, like you approached Anaheim, like you approached Carolina. It's another road game. It's another game you have to come out. You got to start strong. Like you said, they're a good, bad team. So you have to ignore where they are in the standings, and you have to come out and play them like they're above you or equal to you on the standings or in the standings. It could be a trap game like we were speaking about earlier. And it's one of those things where now the Devils are now the target to the point where everyone's going to want to unseat them and their road, basically how they've been doing on the road. Everyone's going to want to make sure that they're the team that beats the Devils, prevents them from continuing to be successful on the road. So, there's going to be that potential chip on anyone's shoulder too, as far as when the Devils come into town.
No team in NHL history has ever swept the Western Canadian road trip and the Eastern Canadian road trip, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, and then Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa. The Devils have a chance to sweep the California road trip in the same season that they swept those two. Obviously, they would be the first team in NHL history to do that. Like all 3 road trips, sweep them all. That's got to mean a little bit something to these guys. Like you touched on how good they've been on the road, but these aren't exactly easy teams to play against.
Yeah, no, you have to assume, it does mean something to them. But it's in the end of the season, you need these 2 points for the playoffs. So it's one of those small things. It's like, yeah, we did it, but I think that the 2 points every single game is much more important, especially because yesterday I believe the Rangers and the Hurricanes both dropped points. So today is a huge opportunity to get another 2 points on both those teams. So you kind of have to put the little kind of participation, awards aside as far as these sweeps are concerned on these road trips, and focus on those 2 points because you can really kind of gain in the standings today.
Yes, absolutely. The Rangers lost to Montreal. That's huge for the Devils
Mm-hmm.
because I would like at least like to see if the Devils can. I mean, coming into the year, if you would have told me that this would be my expectations in the middle of January, I probably would have thought you were nuts because I would have just been happy for them to be on the bubble at this point in the season when we were coming in.
Yeah.
But if you could have a home playoff series to start round number one, you need first or second in the Metropolitan Division. And the Rangers losing certainly helps that. The Flyers lost a couple days ago to the Philadelphia Flyers, who are playing right now. And of course, Carolina, they got a point by getting to overtime with the Vancouver Canucks. But a bad team like the Vancouver Canucks, you expect the Hurricanes to just roll over them. And they only got 1 point out of two against a bad team like that. That's a big win
Mm-hmm.
for the Devils on a night where they were idle. I would probably say out of all the nights they've been idle in the last couple weeks, this was one of the better ones for them because one out of a possible 4 points went to a metropolitan team. They are where they are in the standings, and now you have a chance to continue it going against what's supposed to be a bad Western Conference team. And you have the Seattle
Mm-hmm.
Kraken coming, getting ready to host the Devils in the following game after that. You'd love to grab 6 out of 6 points in California before going to play against that team who's currently on an 8-game winning streak.
Yeah. That game in Seattle should be the more difficult of these four that we have here on the West Coast. So you want to get your points today because you just never know how that game is going to go. I mean, Seattle went in, they beat the Bruins 3-0. They demolished the Chicago Blackhawks. So they're doing very well. And, they went 7 for 7 on their road trip. So it's not like they're unfamiliar with winning on the road. And that would be the more difficult of these, set of games in this week on the West Coast. So we got to get these points today because, you don't know what is going to happen come Thursday night, I believe is the game. It's get the points where you can. And today is that opportunity to get the point where you get the points today.
Now, we don't know for sure who's going to be the starting goaltender today, but you and I both assume it's going to be Vitek Vanacek just based on
Mm-hmm.
the fact that Mackenzie Blackwood has played in the most recent game against the Kings on Saturday. They gave Blackwood the harder team to play against, and he thrived. He only gave up 2 goals, and I thought it was a great game for him. The Devils, if Blackwood plays well, could have 2 pretty good goaltenders to roll with. So how would you handle it going forward?
Well, yeah, that's one of the things I just haven't had time to look up. I'm curious if maybe if Blackwood does. I have to go back and look at his games that he's played. I'm curious if maybe he does better with a higher shot total than maybe Vanacek does, which could be why he got the LA game versus the Anaheim game. But Blackwood played phenomenal against the Kings, stopping that penalty shot, you know, uh, making a ton of saves, and he looks like the Blackwood that we were all hoping for and assuming that we would have had the last couple of years, aside from injuries and inconsistencies. I'm okay with having 2 goalies like this. I'm also okay if they're potentially having Blackwood out there, for show so that they can make a potential deal as well. It's if that's what the Devils are looking to do, then I think LA, that game was a huge showpiece game for someone to come in and say, hey, okay, let's make a deal. If we kept him, I wouldn't be upset either. I got a soft spot in my heart for Blackwood. He wears number 29 like I do, and I think he does really well when he's on. He's inconsistent.
Yeah, he's totally been inconsistent in his career. I'm happy that he was able to get such a good win against a pretty good team. They're the best of the California teams. There's no doubt about it, the Kings. And they got really good players on that team. I understand the Ducks have maybe a little more. I'm not even going to say they have more high-end skill, but you think of the Ducks, you think of like an offensive-minded team, Zegras and Terry and
Mm-hmm.
Klingberg and, all those guys playing over there. But, I think the way that they handled it was great. The Sharks are a little bit different of a monster. One player who we talk about him on every single show. Of course we do. He's their best player. Jack Hughes, another 2-point performance for him in their most recent game, or was it a 3-point performance? Either way, he's putting together multiple point
Yeah, multiple
performances
points.
in what seems like every single game. He had the one game against, I forget who they played. It was the game before the Ducks. He had 0 points in that game.
Carolina.
And they pulled out the
He
win.
had
It was
nothing.
Carolina. You're right. It was
A
Carolina.
lot of
He
secondary
had 0
scoring,
points.
which is what you want.
Yes. Absolutely. It's exactly what you want. And so when you do get the scoring from Jack Hughes, in addition to secondary scoring, the Devils become a very hard team to beat. But I mean, picking up multiple points in, 5 of the last 6 games or whatever it is, he's got to be starting to, at least in your mind, and I know it's already in my mind. Sam and I have talked about it a bunch on this show. He's got to be creeping into like top 10 in the NHL, forward mantra. I don't know how you would describe it, but what is your take on how Jack Hughes has been playing over this California road trip, and even going back the last couple weeks since they started to play like the Devils we know and love again?
I mean, I think Jack has just been the one consistent bright spot in this team all season. He's constantly producing, and it looks like he's the one that's always constantly trying to make a difference and be the difference maker on the ice when he's out there. I mean, you go back a couple weeks, he had a 6-minute shift against the Islanders to try to end that game out and to tie it up. He's constantly, going to the net, shooting on the net from all angles, good and bad. And some are going in from the bad angles and some are going in from the good angles. It's just, he seems to be finally coming into his own. We're seeing him for, knock on wood, what's so far a full season, but he just seems to be the most consistent, and I want to say is kind of the heart of this team right now, as far as he's the heartbeat of the scoring of this team. I don't want to say he's the heart of this team because obviously Nico is up there as well, but man, I don't know if there's a better player on this team right now than Jack Hughes.
In the last game against the Kings, Ahotuk and Graves scored goals, and we've seen Dougie Hamilton score goals. Siegenthaler had that one weird goal against Carolina where like nobody knew if it actually went in until we studied the video replay for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Goals from the back end they're at a premium, I think, in the NHL as a whole, and the Devils have been getting that lately. I do think that kind of plays into them winning, because even if they're not going in directly off the stick of a defenseman, Nico Hischier slowly turning into one of the best deflection artists in the NHL, and Jesper Bratt's really good around the net. We're even seeing Jack Hughes get to the front of the net every now and then and score a couple of his goals. Now, he scores plenty of pretty goals, on the power play where he skates in off the half wall and takes the shot, but he's even had a couple dirty goals, and I think a lot of that has to do with the defenseman chipping in offensively. Do you think that is something that, is worth putting a note on, or can it keep up all season long? Like, where are you at on that?
I think it's great to get offensive help from all over the ice. From defensemen, from goalies, goalies passing it up, defensemen from the point. I mean, one of the Hamilton scored a goal because he followed up his own shot, got his own rebound, and put it in. Like, that's just a heads up play. That's what you want from your players. I'm all about, any kind of offense coming from that back line, because you get those shots from the point. Like you said, Nico's becoming a very good tip artist, but just those dirty goals, it doesn't matter how the goal is scored, dirty goals, clean goals, whatever you want to call them. The goals got to go in, and you're getting a full team effort. That's really what it says to me, is that it's a full team effort. Everyone is getting involved in every aspect of the game.
You touched on depth scoring a little bit earlier in the show so far, and one guy who stuck out to me a little bit, at least in the last couple games, has been Jesper Boquist. And, I was like getting ready to say get him out of the lineup when Bastion comes back. But now I'm thinking twice about it. I'm like, he's got all the skill in the world. He was the Devils' number 2 prospect for a reason. He's been scoring a little bit lately, setting up plays. The effort looks like it's there a little bit more than it has been. And that's kind of one of the things I've critiqued him on. I'm like, if this dude could play like this all the time, he's got all the skill in the world. I don't see why he couldn't be a constant contributor, at least in the middle 6 or bottom 6, whatever it be. What do you think of Boquist?
I think Boquist has been doing great, and I'm curious if part of it is because he knows that the clock is ticking, knowing that Bastion is coming close to being back in the lineup, and then some decision's going to have to be made, and someone's going to have to sit. So it seems like he's trying to ramp it up so that he has to force the coaches into a very difficult decision, whether it's him or someone else, that's going to have to go and take that seat. And that's really what you want. You want that competitive nature from these guys to really come out and show that they want to be in this lineup. They want to produce. Now, like you said, if he could do it consistently when potentially when the clock is not ticking, that would be even better too. But either that, or maybe he's just finally coming into his own this season and he's just finding some consistency finally. But he's been a bright spot, just like the rest of the secondary scoring that we've seen over the course of this road trip.
Yeah, it's been a nice road trip. I think winning on the road is important. Obviously, I think if you were struggling at home and struggling on the road, or like one or the other, I would pick struggling at home, because I think it's probably easier to get out of struggling at home than it is to struggling on the road. If you're struggling on the road all season long, it just seems to me like I've never played in the NHL. I'm never going to. But if I had to guess, I would assume that that's the one that would be harder to pull out of and get my confidence back. At least at home, the people are cheering for you.
Well, yeah, you're assuming they are, because if you go into a slide at home, you can get your fans to really turn against you. The one good thing about being on the road is it's one of those things where you can the team can kind of insulate itself, and the guys can come a lot closer when they're on the road because they've gotten really no one else to talk to or no one else to see. So it could potentially be easier to break out of something on the road because really the pressure's on the home team in order to win, especially now with the Devils being so hot on the road. Every building that they go into, the pressure's on the home team to not be just another team that the Devils, notch another victory on the road. If you're at home and you're not doing well, I mean, sometimes that can be a little bit harder to break out of if the fans kind of get on your back and stay on your back. I would think, kind of opposite of you, that I would rather be trying to break. I would hate to be playing terrible on the road because that also makes every single trip miserable. But I would almost think it could be a little bit easier to break out of a road skid versus a home skid if the fans are just turning against you.
You make a very, very good point. When you're at home, there are plenty of other factors that go into your life, your career, stuff like that, family, kids, anything that could be going on. You're right. When you're on the road, it's pretty much just being an NHL player. Like, that's all you have to focus on is playing the next game. So one thing I wanted to point out to you. Go ahead.
I was going to say you don't have your neighbor who's when he sees you at the mailbox going, "Why can't you guys win?" You don't have that on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Or when you go to the mall, hey, score a goal.
Yeah, pretty much.
We have a bunch of people in the chat talking about Miles Wood scoring a goal, and they are just absolutely positive that he's going to score a goal today against the San Jose Sharks. We even have Dave Singer saying that he put money on them to score. Do you agree with this?
I mean, Miles Wood has the ability, and I would love to see Miles Wood score. He started to muck it up a little bit the other night, which was good. I mean, we're getting secondary scoring from all over the place. So can he score today? Yeah, he could definitely score today, especially against a team like San Jose. Am I going to predict it? Am I going to put money on it? No, because anyone who's listened to me on this show knows that my predictions are just wildly off, and I'm not a very good gambler either. But the potential is definitely there.
Yeah, I agree. And when I think, I wonder, there's really no rhyme or reason why that conversation started. I was looking back trying to figure it out. I'm trying to think of like Miles Wood versus the Sharks, right? The Sharks they have a pretty good top six, right? Guys like Logan Couture and Timo Meier and, stuff like that. And their bottom six, though, it's going to be a bunch of names that, only the true diehard of diehard Sharks fans know a lot about. And Miles Wood has taken advantage against teams like that, especially on the road when, the Heishers and the Hughes might see the Coutures or, whatever top shutdown line that San Jose is going to throw out at you. And that just might create a little bit more space for a guy like Miles Wood. And that's why I kind of understand what these people are saying. And someone said that he has the killer instinct as of early this season. And yeah, Miles Wood knows what's at stake, especially with some tough games at home coming up after they get home following the Seattle game next week. So you got to put these points in the bags, and few people in the league want to help their team do that more than Miles Wood. So I understand where that is coming from. And, I don't know how you feel about this. Miles Wood brings more than just secondary scoring offense. He's hard to play against. He's fast. If you mess with him, he's going to try and fight you. So, I mean, I don't know. I hope he scores one today for all the folks in the chat today that put some money on it.
Yeah, no, he definitely is willing to do anything and everything for this team. If he doesn't score a goal today, I hope he at least creates a goal so that there's some kind of scoring that he has his hand over, whether he gets an assist or not, what have you. But as long as he's out there, and he's more than capable of going out there and creating a goal, and not just scoring a goal, which is huge as well.
Absolutely. And if you're watching this and posting stuff in the comments, I encourage you to put your prediction in there right now. And I will read some of them out loud when we get to that portion of the show. While we wait for all these predictions to start loading into the YouTube Shorts guy, one person that we want to touch on really quick before we get to those predictions is Jesper Bratt. Jesper Bratt kind of went dry throughout all of December. And I think that was a big contributing factor to why things fell off. He was still scoring. Jack Hughes was still scoring. The secondary scoring dried up a little bit, and so did Jesper Bratt,
Mm-hmm.
who I really don't consider to be secondary scoring at this point. If I had to pick out of the three who lead secondary scoring, it would have to be Bratt, but because he's, not driving his own line quite like Hughes and Heischer are, but sometimes he is. And I think he needs to be one of the top offensive producers on this team. And if he's not, you see what can happen. Where are you on Bratt contract? I know there's all sorts of discussion about that. I mean, there's a whole group of things we could talk about when
Yeah.
it comes to this player.
Yeah, no, there's a lot there with Bratt. He's he went to arbitration for that 1-year deal. He had that long streak in the beginning of the season, and you're right, he completely dried up for a little bit. But I'm with you. I don't know if I want to call him secondary scoring, but he's not Nico, he's not Jack, so he's kind of like a 1A, like a 1B scoring type of guy. But he needs to be consistent, not only for this team to win, but he needs to be consistent if he really wants to get the contract that he believes he deserves in the offseason. I know he's an RFA, so we at least have that opportunity to keep him. But he's got to remain consistent if he wants to get himself and the team rewarded at the same time.
Absolutely. He's one of the most important players in the organization. Shorts guy, there have been a lot of predictions flowing in the chat since I brought it up for people to load them in there. We even got a football prediction in there. Ted believes that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to beat the Buffalo Bills 28-14, and I could not agree more. I will be betting on the Cincinnati Bengals to upset the Buffalo Bills this weekend. Looking forward to that. But as far as the Devils predictions, we have Stephen Engel believes 5-3 Devils. Zach Addison believes 3-1 Devils. Max Pedinoff believes 6-2 Devils. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Correct me in the chat. Ramona Rice, 5-1 Devils. She's almost always right. Dave Singer, 6-3 Devils. Zach Addison threw in an extra, little chiming on his prediction. He said Devils score 3 and lockdown defense after letting up one goofy goal. Ted, the same Ted that made the football prediction, 6-2 Devils. Max pointed out that the Bruins are beating the Flyers 6-0. Wow, it was 4-0 when I left to turn on this, podcast and get going with the show. And we got a prediction from our own Sam Wu, who believes that the New Jersey Devils are going to win 7-3. So, Shorts guy, it's about the time I send it over to you for your prediction on today's game, the New Jersey Devils at the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah, the prediction I never get right. So I'm going to go, because I haven't seen it yet, I'm going to go 4-1 Devils. I was close to saying 4-0, but San Jose, actually, looking at their past schedule, has not been shut out at all recently. So I don't want to say a shutout, but 4-1 Devils for me tonight. And, 4-1 Devils victory. That's about it. So what's your prediction there, Vinny?
My prediction today is going to be, I think the Devils are going to win 5-2, the same exact score that they defeated the Los Angeles Kings with. I think that would be very interesting. I didn't send a prediction for the game against the Kings. I was absent from the show due to a previous commitment, but I nailed it for the first time this season. I'm 1-41 on my predictions this season. 5-2 Devils. So that's what I'm going to go with today. In the chat, we got some more.
Right.
Dubs is says 4-1. Miles Wood, all 4 goals.
4 goals. Wow.
If that guy's right, if Miles Wood scores
that would
3
be great.
goals, I'll be incredibly impressed with that prediction. Shane Van Sickle says 4-2 Devils. I think that's about it for what we got on these predictions.
That's the last one, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a Devils victory according to a lot of these people. I think if they play fast, and obviously the Devils got outshot by the Los Angeles Kings. That's something that rarely happens. Even when they lose games, they tend to outshoot their opponents. And I think that's a lot of the times they've gotten goalied on their losing streak. People hate when I say that, but I mean, you see how Linus Allmark and Carter Hart, they played in a couple of those games that the Devils lost. I'm like, wow, sometimes that just happens. You lose to a goalie who's on fire. And, I'm not necessarily sure the Sharks are throwing out anyone today that's going to turn into Martin Brodeur in his prime, but you never know. The Devils kind of do that to goalies sometimes this season. I think if they play hard on the forecheck, use your speed, defend Erik Karlsson, put extreme emphasis on Erik Karlsson. He makes everyone around him better in every way. I think they can pull off the win today.
Yeah, this is, kind of like when we started the podcast. This is definitely one of those games that they need to pull off the win. They need to get the points today because the points may be a little bit more difficult Thursday. Got to collect these points where they can. And tonight is today, this afternoon, this evening, I guess, for us here on the East Coast. This is a perfect opportunity to collect those points, go into Seattle, see what you can do, and then go back home after that.
Absolutely. In the chat, Dave Singer points out that my hat is sick, were his exact words. I had to get that in
Nice.
there. I actually got this when I was in New York a couple weeks ago. It's at the NHL store. They have the reverse retro 2 cat for all 32 teams. And listen, I almost bought more. I wanted to buy like 5, for multiple different teams. The Bruins one is sick. The Blackhawks one is sick. I don't know if anybody's out here trying to buy reverse retro gear, but I got the jersey and had to get the hat with it. So yeah, you got to go out there. And it was only $30, which is kind of cheap for a hat at the NHL store. I was expecting to spend 50 on it, but I don't know. I don't know how you feel about this. I think the Devils gear lately, so there are people who hate the jersey, but I think some of the gear that comes with the jersey, the shirts, the hats, whatever, anything of the black sort, I think, it looks sharp. I think the Devils are a well-dressed team. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I want to say the jersey's kind of growing on me. I'm partial still to the green reverse retro. That's been my favorite the last couple of years. But at the last game I was at, the beginning of January, against the Blues, I went into the Devil's Den. They had a black scarf which matches the jersey, and I picked that up just because it looked really sharp. It's just black and white. It says Devils in the front. It's got 82 on the ends. 82 is also my birth year, same as the Devils, so I was kind of partial to that for that reason. But man, it's just a nice black and white scarf, and it looks real sharp. So I was glad I could pick that up.
Does it bug you that you publicly announce that you were born in the same year that the Devils were born? So now every time they celebrate an anniversary, they're just going to know exactly how old Shorts Guy is. Like, oh, the 40 patch on their shoulder. Now we know how old Shorts Guy is. Uh-oh.
Nope. I am A-okay with people knowing that because that's how much of a diehard fan I am. I'm the same age as my team, born the very same year. Actually, I was born July before the season started, so I guess maybe I'm a little bit older than the team, but that's okay. I always try to get something with whatever the anniversary logo is. I've got a hat with the 25th anniversary logo. I think I might have something with the 30th, and I got to get something with the 40th anniversary logo on it.
Yeah, and I love the 40 logo. I think they did a really good job with it. I actually think that's really cool. You're like, I'm such a diehard fan that I was born the same year as the team. There has been no years that they existed before me and no years that they have existed after me. One thing I always take pride in, the first team to ever win the Stanley Cup with Vinnie Parise breathing on earth was the New Jersey Devils, the 1995 Stanley Cup champions. I was born in 94, but it was after. It was so it's kind of it's a double-edged sword. When I was born, the Rangers were the defending Stanley Cup champions, but then I came into this world, and all of a sudden the Devils turned it around. The Rangers haven't won it since. So, it's been good. I actually kind of like that fact.
Well, and so here's another wild fact. 7th grade me was at that game, so that's how much older I am than you. I was in 7th. I was just finishing 7th grade and in the arena for the day that the cup was raised. So it was that was definitely a special day for me as well.
That's funny. As Sam Wu points out, it was the New York Oilers that won the Stanley Cup in 1994. So that's actually really funny. I'm going to start using that line. Hey, you didn't win you just won because the Oilers helped you. Your
pretty much.
farm team really helped you. But Shorts guy, before we get out of here, is there anything else you want to say before we head into this game between the New Jersey Devils and the San Jose Sharks?
Not much. Just play strong, play hard, and don't underestimate your opponent. That would be my advice to the team.
Absolutely. And I think the Devils, if they go out there and play the game the way that we know that they can go out there and make a fool of the San Jose Sharks. Now, this is the NHL. It's a little bit different. It's hard. You could be playing the Chicago Blackhawks, the Columbus Blue Jackets, some of the worst teams in the league. The Sharks haven't traded away any of their players yet that can burn you. Go out there, play the game the way that we can. Hopefully we see Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt lead the way with some depth scoring behind them. Good goaltending from whoever it is they throw out there. I believe it'll be Vitek Vanacek. Defend the puck well. We can't thank everybody enough in the YouTube chat for joining us for today's conversation. Facebook, Twitter, everybody watching in any capacity. We thank you so much. It's during the day. It's the middle of the day in January, and you are all hanging out here with us. We could not thank you enough. You are an incredible fan base of not only the team, but the podcast in general. And we will say to you one more time, as always, let's go Devils.